The greatest scientific discovery of its age was a lie buried in the Sussex soil. For over 40 years, the scientific community clung to a fossil that rewrote human evolution. It was hailed as the missing link, proof of humanity's ancient British origins. But the truth, when it finally emerged, was far more sinister than a simple misidentification. This is the story of the Piltdown Man, a meticulously crafted deception that fooled some of the brightest minds of the early 20th century. A tale of ambition, misplaced trust, and the desperate search for evidence to fit a preconceived narrative. The year was 1912. Europe was on the cusp of a great war, but in the quiet village of Piltdown, Sussex, an amateur archaeologist named Charles Dawson made a discovery that would rock the scientific world. Dawson, a solicitor by profession, but a passionate fossil hunter by hobby, contacted Arthur Smith Woodward, the keeper of geology at the British Museum. He claimed to have found fragments of a remarkably ancient human skull. The site, a gravel pit near Piltdown Common, soon became the focus of intense excavation. Over the next few years, more fragments emerged, parts of a thick skull, a jawbone, and even some primitive tools. What made these finds so extraordinary was the combination: a large, human-like cranium alongside an ape-like jaw. It seemed to represent the perfect missing link, a transitional form between ape and man, a creature dubbed Eanthropus dawsoni, or Dawson's Dawn Man. The timing was impeccable. British scientists, feeling somewhat overshadowed by continental discoveries of Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons, yearned for their own ancient human ancestor. Piltdown Man offered precisely that, placing Britain at the heart of human evolution. The discovery was met with enormous excitement. Woodward, a respected figure, championed the find, convincing many of its authenticity. Detailed reconstructions were made, and Piltdown Man became a cornerstone of paleoanthropology for decades. Yet even from the outset, there were dissenting voices. Some anatomists pointed out the strange mismatch between the distinctly human skull and the undeniably simian jaw. The teeth, too, seemed oddly worn. But these concerns were largely dismissed. The prevailing scientific theories of the time favored the idea that a large brain developed first in human evolution, preceding changes in the jaw and teeth. Piltdown Man fit this model perfectly. The sheer authority of figures like Woodward, combined with national pride and a desire for a compelling narrative, created a powerful confirmation bias. To question Piltdown was, in some circles, to question British scientific prestige itself. Years passed. More significant fossil discoveries were made in Africa and Asia. Peking Man, Australopithecus, which contradicted the Piltdown narrative. These new finds showed a different evolutionary path. Bipedalism and changes in the jaw came before a significantly enlarged brain. By the 1940s, Piltdown Man was looking increasingly like an outlier, an anomaly that didn't fit the emerging picture of human ancestry. The inconsistencies became harder to ignore. The definitive unraveling began in 1949 with a new dating technique. Fluorine absorption tests could determine how long a bone had been buried in a particular soil. The results for Piltdown were devastating. The skull fragments were indeed ancient, perhaps 50,000 years old. But the jawbone and teeth, they were far younger, perhaps only a few thousand years old. They simply hadn't been buried together for the same duration. Further investigation in 1953, led by Kenneth Oakley, Joseph Weiner, and Wilfred LaGrose Clark, employed more advanced techniques. They found that the jaw was undeniably that of a modern orangutan. The teeth had been filed down to mimic human wear patterns. Even more damning, the bones had been deliberately stained with an iron solution and bichromate to make them appear older and to match the color of the gravel. The primitive tools found at the site were also fakes. Piltdown Man was not a missing link. It was a sophisticated forgery. The scientific community had been duped, and the revelation sent shockwaves through the world of paleoanthropology. But who was behind this elaborate deception? Suspicion immediately fell upon Charles Dawson. He was the discoverer, the one who consistently found the most crucial fragments, and he had a history of questionable archaeological finds. Yet Dawson had died in 1916, years before the hoax was exposed. While he was undoubtedly involved, many believe he couldn't have acted alone. The scientific expertise required to pull off such a convincing fraud suggested an accomplice, perhaps even a brilliant but disgraced scientist. Over the decades, numerous theories have emerged. Suspects have included Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, who lived nearby and had an interest in spiritualism, and even Teilhard de Chardin, a young Jesuit priest who assisted Dawson at the site. Other theories implicated Martin Hinton, a British museum taxidermist with the necessary skills to manipulate bones, or even Sir Arthur Smith Woodward himself, perhaps as a misguided attempt to prove a theory. The true perpetrator, or perpetrators, remains a subject of intense debate. The Piltdown Man hoax stands as a stark reminder of the human element in scientific discovery. It shows how biases, desires, and the very human need for validation can distort the pursuit of truth. It also highlights the self-correcting nature of science. Though it took decades, the rigorous application of new techniques eventually exposed the fraud, demonstrating science's ultimate commitment to empirical evidence, no matter how inconvenient. The Piltdown Man taught us that even in the most revered institutions, deception can take root, but the relentless march of inquiry will, in time, always bring the truth to light. Next, we delve into the curious case of the lying stones of Beringa.